Hello, Alan Dell with Big Band Sounds once again, and quite an historic collection this evening. But first, this one. As far as I'm concerned, that gentleman and his orchestra are never without honour in their own country. Sid Lawrence and I Dreamt I Dwelt in Harlem, perhaps one of the slightly less often performed Glenn Millerisms in Sid's library. And a lot of water has passed under the bridge since he recorded that. There seems to be some difference of opinion as to its first appearance. I first had it in that double LP box set, and there it's listed as a 1971 recording with solos, incidentally, from Norman Brown on tenor, Barry Thompson on clarinet, and Sid himself trumpet. And when it was reissued in that ridiculously titled double disco swinging set, it was given a publication date of 1969. Either way, it's getting on a bit, but not in comparison with a real feast of clarinet-led big band sounds that will occupy a fair amount of space in our show this evening. We have both of the great clarinet kings, Benny Goodman and Artie Shaw. by way of some recent releases of historic recordings. However, we'll save both for a little longer and partake for the next few minutes once again from the wares of Richard Maltby. Richard Maltby's orchestra and Amapola from that Camden album of a whole lot of years back called A Bow to the Big Name Bands, which you may remember when we delved into it in some depth earlier this year, was on loan to me from Mr. Arthur Dixon of Enfield in Middlesex. Well, Mr. Dixon has dropped me a note recently asking if I could recall for him and other members of the Sid Lawrence Appreciation Society who meet monthly to enjoy big band record recitals of all sorts of things, if I could tell them what Ray Anthony's signature tune was. It certainly wasn't Dragnet, Mr. Dixon. That was one of Ray's biggest hits, though. His signature tune is called Man with the Horn, and I'll not only play it for you, but have Ray Anthony say a few words as well.
Hello, everyone. The theme you hear is just a sample of what's to come. We call it Music in Action, and yours truly is the man with the horn, Ray Anthony. Okay, boys and girls, let's go. Back in 1941, I played with the famous Glenn Miller Orchestra. And what a great orchestra that was. My experience with Glenn's band was probably the greatest musical influence I've ever had. Everything Glenn did was tops with me. It was that influence that made me follow the Miller tradition. The familiar voicings of the reeds, the pattern of his arrangements. Not only because I feel it is a tribute to him, but the folks enjoy dancing and listening to it wherever we go.
Remembering Ray Anthony's signature tune turned into a small cameo extracted from some of his transcription recordings that he made in the 1950s. Mr. Dixon also asked what Billy May's signature tune was. I actually never thought about it. I suppose he had one when he was on the road. Perhaps someone will know and let me know. Now, I think we can get amongst the good things in the two clarinet albums I mentioned that I have for you. Both are imports from Sweden on the Fontastic label, that's spelled P-H-O-N-T-A-S-T-I-C, Fontastic, in their Nostalgia series. And if we take them chronologically, we have first the Artie Shaw tracks derived from the Melody and Madness radio shows of 1938-39. The band began rehearsing for those shows on November the 18th, 1938, and the actual broadcasts were 2 days later. But both rehearsals and the shows were transcribed, and the best choice has been made for this album, which I see is designated as Volume 1, so hopefully there are more to come. And if so, I hope the compilers and or producers include some of the songs by the guest vocalist of the series, who was Dick Todd. Many people remember him well. Anyway, let's begin with the first track on the album, which, according to my files, was the first tune rehearsed on November the 18th, 1938. And this is a rehearsal take. It's the Irving Berlin composition from the Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, or was for them. It was the dance called the Yam, but it's announced on the album.
And here's Artie Shaw swinging in the groove with the Yam.
The band was cooking, was it not? The Yam, that was. The note for this album was written by that clarinet buff, and indeed the man behind the fantastic label, Anders R. Ehrman. And as he rightly says, even if you have long known many of the arrangements that are on this album, you may still yet be surprised at the fire, the uninhibited attack of the Artie Shaw Orchestra in these performances. Of course, playing to an audience, as so often happens, everything changes up a gear. And that's very true of these takes. The next one?
Artie Shaw calls the cats out of the hangar to get off with his own composition, Non-Stop Flight.
non-stop flight. Mr. Ullman was maybe writing for his Swedish audience when he comments Artie Shaw was much underrated as a clarinetist, especially amongst the jazz fraternity, and he adds that the orchestra never got the appreciation it really deserved among lovers of swing. I wouldn't have said that was the case here in Britain, not judging from the mail that I'm always getting about Artie Shaw. Certainly the band was a marvellous unit, perfectly tailored, and Shaw always had a happy knack of picking good tunes, many, of course, show songs from the greats like Irving Berlin, Kern, Porter, and along with musicians of the calibre of Johnny Best, Bernie Priven, Georgie Auld, and Buddy Rich, not forgetting the lovely Helen Forrest, the 1938-39 band is deservedly a legend.
Artie Shaw with a swell new tune, Who Blew Out the Flame?
Well, in that bracket of tunes, Who Blew Out the Flame, which was sung by Helen Forrest, and You Got Me, another instrumental to close our look at this Artie Shaw LP. Excerpts from the 1938-39 Melody and Madness radio shows, Volume 1. I shall look forward to the next one, but rejoice meanwhile in these 14 tracks, which include several old favourites of yours and mine, I'm sure. Back Bass Shuffle, Yesterdays, What Is This Thing Called Love, Shoot the Liquor to Me, John Boy, It Had to Be You, Copenhagen, plus other very nice goodies indeed. It's all, as I said, on the Fantastic label, on the number NOST, because this is in the Nostalgia series, NOST 7609. Fantastic, NOST 7609. And my copy, as well as the Benny Goodman album we'll get to shortly, came to me from Chris Wellard, Independent Record Sales, 110 Eltham Hill, Eltham, London SE 9. Just before we go on to some other things, my friend John Charman, who operates for the hospital radio, Radio Way, has just called in. He should have been listening to the Artie Shaw, but he rang in with the information about Billy May's signature tune, which he said that he has a recording of from the Café Rouge in 1953, and there they used Lean Baby. Of course, I should have thought of that. After all, Billy May wrote the thing himself, so it's a natural. Lean Baby would apparently be Mr. May's signature tune. Anyway, after that, as I say, I have some more modern things to play you. One is a digital recording of June 1979, but I don't think that we can go from Artie Shaw forward 40 years and then back to the same span for the Goodman items. The contrast in sound and style, I think, would be too drastic. So let's see if we can bridge the gap more gently with something like this. gentleman telling you that was Roses of Picardy was Sam Donahue, recorded live and in stereo with his orchestra at Jantzen Beach, Portland, Oregon in 1957. And playing now, More Than You Know. Sam Donahue and his orchestra in 1957. Only a few weeks ago, because I only discovered a copy of the album then, we had a track by the Four Freshmen with Pete Ruglow's trombone choir. I think it was Route 66. It's an LP of old, worth sampling further.
Every time it rains, pennies from heaven. Don't you know each cloud contains pennies from heaven? You'll find your fortune falling all over town. Be sure that your umbrella is upside down. Trade them for a package of sunshine and flowers. If you want the things you love, you must have showers. So when you hear it thunder, don't run under a tree. There'll be pennies from heaven for you and me. Of sunshine and flowers. If you want the things you love, you must have showers. So when you hear it thunder, don't run under a tree. There'll be pennies from heaven for you.
lovely arrangement. 4 freshmen and 10 trombones, directed by Pete Rugler. Well, that's provided a stereo change of scene for an interlude between, I guess, the 2 greatest swing clarinetists of big bandom. We now come to Benny Goodman. Without checking back through the files, I can't tell you exactly, but a fair while ago I played some tracks from a fantastic album called The Alternate Goodman, remarking that we have a professorial listener who wrings his hands in horror at the use of that word alternate. Although, I must say, good friend, I just checked my edition of the Oxford Dictionary, and it gives a modern American usage of the word meaning a second or substitute. There we are. I'm not going to get into all that. Anyway, that's what these tracks were, substitute recordings for those that were initially issued. That aside, there is now a second volume of alternatives, and it picks up where Volume 1 ended, in fact, with the very same session of September the 13th, 1939. All the tunes on that day were tried and recorded more than once, and 5 alternatives were issued on the earlier volume of Goodman Things. On this one, this new one, the 6th tune appears. And this is different because it's never had a release until now. It's also the last recording that Louise Tobin made with Benny as vocalist. Louise, as you know, is now Peanuts Hacker's wife. And the tune is titled I've Been There Before. Good number. And this is a super quality too for a, 41-year-old record. been there before. Louise Tobin, the singer, September the 13th, 1939. Incidentally, I should mention here that on the sleeve, this recording is marked as mono. On the actual label, it says stereo. That, of course, would mean electronically processed, but in fact, played in the stereo mode. All that happens is that the B leg, the right channel, is 2 to 3 dBs higher than the right, so everything is biased to the right. So rather than discover that we're all leaning over one way, we're going to centralize everything. The second track on the album is a sextet recording of October the 2nd, 1939. Goodman, Hampton, Fletcher Henderson on piano, Charlie Christian, Arthur Bernstein, and Nick Fatul, in a take that was issued as a V-disc called Homeward Bound, but which, of course, is the well-known Flying Home. There are other sextet items like Soft Winds from November the 22nd, 1939, and I'm Confessin' of December the 20th. Goodman authority Russ Connor writes in the sleeve note, "When I first discovered a test pressing of the sextet's I'm Confessin', I could think of only one reason why there had been no contemporary release. The copy was pressed off-center, and this seemed to distort the speed and blur the sound, I should say. But that supposition lost credence when eventually I obtained a flawless copy, and obviously Benny and Columbia Records should have had access to it too. Herewith not only that flawless copy, but a flawless performance of an old standard, on which, incidentally, Fletcher Henderson is replaced at the piano by Johnny Guarneri." Confessin', the sextet of December 1939. After the departure of Louise Tobin, Mildred Bailey filled in as vocalist with Benny, at least for his recordings and on his Camel Caravan shows from the New York area. But in the last few days of 1939, to join the band came the lady who had been singing with Artie Shaw until he left her and the orchestra high and dry and went off to Mexico. and that, of course, was Helen Forrest. She, it seems, was a one-take girl, because all through January, February, March, and April of 1940, there were no alternatives as far as she was concerned. But there was one, just one recording, unreleased until this LP. And that was obviously because she was under-recorded, and that's why it was shelved, I think. April the 16th was the date, and the tune title, I Can't Love You Anymore. Love You Anymore, Helen Forrest with Benny Goodman, and an unissued title of April 1940. For an encore with Miss Forrest only slightly in better perspective, an alternative take of that great song by Roger Edens from November 1940, at least this was the recording date, I Ain't Got Nobody. I Ain't Got Nobody. An Eddie Sauter arrangement, incidentally, and for that very same session, Mr. Sauter contributed another couple of, Goodman classics they turned out to be. The Man I Love, which was for Helen Forrest, and Benny Rides Again. So this album is the Alternate Goodman, Volume 2 on Fantastic, NOST 7610. The Alternate Goodman, Volume 2, Fantastic, NOST 7610. That's the quota. See you next Wednesday and Thursday round, I hope. From me, Alan Dell, night, as we play out with just a few seconds of an earlier one from the Goodman Library. This is NOST 7606, down by the Old Mill Stream.
Thank you very much, Alan Dell. See you again soon.